Hello, my name's Life Master AJ Goldsby. I'm coming to you today to bring you a video. It's on one of Paul Morphy's games, and I have several web pages on this game, and I've covered this game a number of times. But I recently got an email, and one of my fans suggested that I do a video on this game. And at first I said no, I didn't really think I would do one. But then the more I thought about it, I thought, why not? It's a very good game, and it would probably make a fairly interesting video, not because of me, but because of the subject matter. And of course, Paul Morphy is one of my favorite players of all time. I believe he is a great genius of chess and one of the greats, all-time greats of the game. So I thought, why not? We'll go ahead and do a do a video on this game of Paul Morphy's. This game was played in a club in the main club of New Orleans, Louisiana, in 1858. Paul Morphy was white and an amateur was black. The name of the amateur was not recorded. We don't know who was actually playing black. Two things, though, we do know about this game. A couple of different sources. Probably the most reliable is David Lawson recorded that this game was played in a simul, and Morphy was not only playing a simultaneous against 6 people, he played all of the games. He played all 6 games blindfolded. And this is a game that stood up to, for the most part, it stood up to literally years of intensive computer analysis. So anyway, without any further ado, we'll go ahead and examine this game. And I do want to read just the intro here, and because it's by Irving Chernev, and he writes so well. Morphy's combinations usually ended in a mate or a reasonable facsimile thereof. Here he resorts to a device rarely seen in his time. He simplifies by a series of exchanges to reach a position where the mere threat of a simple pin clinches the win. And that's Irving Chernev, and that's from the 1000 Best Short Games of Chess, and that's game number 898, page number 485. I also want to do something else here, too. I want to go ahead and fire up a chess engine here. I have several folders. I've closed a lot of the bigger folders, but I'm going to just go ahead and open up a chess engine here. And you can actually watch here. It would be fun to watch. This is Fritz 13, which is one of the state-of-the-art engines. I also have Houdini 2.0 and even 3.0 and Deep Shredder and a couple of the other engines as well. But this is probably, I consider it to be one of the most reliable of all the engines. But it'd be just interesting here to keep an eye on the engine, and I will point things out as they turn up. But anyway, we'll go ahead and dive into the game. Again, Paul Morphy was white in this game, and an amateur, a person not named, was black in this game. And it was played in New Orleans, Louisiana, and this was in 1858. Starts off e4, e5, f4, e takes f4, knight f3. Black plays a kind of a weird move here, c6. Not a terrible move, but it's certainly not a main line there. Now, if you're interested, I'm not going to cover in my video, I'm not going to cover a deep analysis of the opening. I have a Game of the Month website. I know for a fact that there are several games in the King's Gambit on that website, and there you'll find state-of-the-art analysis done with both the engines and the latest edition of 2012 and 2013 Power Book. Also, too, I have a game, if you want to Google it, it's on my big website, but it's a game between Spassky is white and Bronstein is black. I consider it one of the 10 greatest games ever played, and that was also a King's Gambit, and in that game I give it a complete survey of all the major opening lines in the King's Gambit. So if you want to find that game and check that game out on the internet, then you can pretty much find, and also any opening book like a MCO 15 or ECO, Encyclopedia of Chess Openings, etc. They will give some of the better lines in the King's Gambit. I'm not really interested in exploring the opening too deeply. But anyway, just go ahead and the normal move there, rather than c6, is a lot of times black. The Fischer defense is d6. The old classical defense is g5, and you can play a number of other moves. The offbeat bishop e7 is sometimes played. Knight f6 is very often played. D5, pawn takes pawn, and then bishop to d6. That's Bronstein's defense. He came up with that idea there. So there's a number of different ways that black can play or meet the king's gambit, and all of them lead to a satisfactory game for black in the king's gambit accepted. But here black played the move 3c6. And now white just continues his development. Knight c3, bishop b4. Here it says black is in a rush to get rid of white's knight. Yet later in the game it turns out it's the long-range bishop that's going to be the much more dangerous piece of these two minor pieces. Better than bishop to b4 was probably simply the move just d5. The engine gives d5 there. d4 takes, knight takes e4. Knight f6, queen e2. Knight takes, queen takes, check, queen e7. Queen e7, bishop takes c7. Bishop to f4. And this is a book line, and it's from the new power book. And white's here a little bit better here in this position. Fritz tends to overestimate its advantage sometimes. Probably, I would say, sometimes to the tune, you literally can divide some of Fritz's advantage in half. When looking at some of his advantages, I would say probably a more reliable engine for telling you the opening advantage would probably be Houdini or Ribka. You know, they both give a much more conservative estimate of white's advantage here. But anyway, that's the main line there. Just going back to the game though, again, white played 4 knight c3, and black played bishop to b4, and white just continues developing here. Bishop to c4. It's a good move. It develops a piece. It hits the center. It gets white ready to castle. So it basically, you know, follows all the 4 main opening principles. The 4 main opening principles are controlling the center, very rapid development of the pieces. That's number 2. Number 3 is to protect the king and castle early. It's a 2-part equation. And the 4th rule, really, of the opening principle, rather, of chess in the openings is to probably try to maintain control over all your squares. Basically, the Nimzovich concept of square control. And, you know, protecting all your pieces. Don't let anything, you know, don't let a pawn go or a piece go, you know, those kind of things. Like I tell beginners, don't play giveaway. Okay, so anyway, in that position, white plays bishop takes c4. Now, black plays a very bad move. He plays bishop takes c3. A much better move would be to play d5 there. Black can play d5, and I won't even explore that line here. I have a web page on this game. It's already posted. I've already revised that web page. In fact, I have 2 web pages. I have a web page on this game and my own replay page, and I also posted an analysis yesterday on. It's all updated, and it's like over 10 pages of analysis, and it's in a PDF form, so you can see it and read it and open it instantly. And all you have to do is click on the website on my link, you know, and I'll give the link to my web page on this in the box just below the video where it says show more. If you'll just click on that, I'll give the link to my web page. But anyway, here black plays bishop takes c3. That was a very bad idea, and basically I wanted you to be able to understand why. And the main reason it's why is because it terribly weakens the dark squares. Now, I will say this. Probably black played that move thinking that white was going to recapture with the b-pawn. But white surprised black and played d takes c3. That's a rule violation. A rule violation. Basically, white's capturing away from the center. The normal rule of thumb is you always capture towards the center. But here white does the opposite, but he does so with clear intent. And obviously what he does is by taking with this pawn, he frees up this bishop. His queen is free to move up and down the d file, and also too this bishop, you know, is now free. And white has, you know, he's also guarding key squares there. Also too, he keeps a much more uniform pawn structure there on the queen side. So basically, by violating the rule, white gets much more control of squares, open lines, and space for his pieces, and it also greatly accelerates his development too. So the d takes c3 really was a good move. Again, it was a violation of the standard rule of thumb that you always capture toward the center, but obviously Morphe was a great genius of the game. And black plays knight e7, and now white plays a very nice move. The next move here is a very nice move, queen d6. This is a very accurate move, and normally you see the queen here. What the queen is doing is basically playing the role of a blockader. You stick it down on d6, it's almost impervious to capture, and it totally prevents black from developing his queen side. In other words, basically plugs that hole there. And because the knight can't attack, it can't go to f5 because you simply would play pawn takes knight. Obviously, if queen c7, then, you know, just queen takes queen. Now black might play knight a6 and queen c7, but on knight a6, white might just play bishop takes knight, and black would have double isolated a pawns, which would be very bad. So the long story short is that this queen on d6 is an extremely powerful move, and it totally prevents black from being able to do his normal developing ideas. And also here, right before when black played knight e7, he was looking to play d5. And one of the things that I'm trying to get all my students to understand today, that normally you have a dialogue in a chess game. When you have two fairly decent chess players both playing in a game of chess, there's a dialogue that goes on. And the dialogue is basically, you know, one move will say, I'm trying to do something with this move. This move has an idea in it. And generally what you will find when you have two really strong players, that if a player can, he's either going to try to prevent you from achieving your own idea, or choose an alternate idea which is even stronger or has a greater threat than your idea. So generally when you have two strong players, you'll have this dialogue. And the dialogue is that basically, you know, one player always says, a move says, I'm trying to do something. And here with knight e7 on the sixth move, black is saying, I would like to play d7, d5. So you see Morphe here immediately preventing his opponent from doing that. So that was a very good move. And now black just simply castles. White plays bishop takes f4. He gets his pawn back. And now black plays knight g6. He's trying to unravel his pieces. In other words, maybe one idea of knight g6 is it clears the e file. He could put his rook here and attack white's e pawn. And also he might play queen e7 and try to swap off the queens. White doesn't want to give up his very powerful dart squared bishop for this knight, because that would allow black, every exchange is basically going to take a little bit of a pressure off black's position. And now white plays bishop g5. That was a very good move. Rather than simply retreating the bishop back to d2, e3, or g3, white plays bishop g5, and this attacks the black queen, and now the black queen is basically put in jeopardy. The normal move in these kind of positions would be for black to play f7, f6, and kick the bishop with tempo. But here that's not possible, because the bishop on c4 is pinning that pawn on f7 to the black king. So that move isn't even possible. So anyway, bishop to g5. And also, too, I want you to take a look at the engines here. The engine's already seeing an almost overwhelming advantage here for white. So anyway, bishop to g5. And let's see, backing up here, too, we see that the engine agrees with Morphe that Morphe's move, bishop g5, was the correct move. So bishop to g5. And now black plays queen e8. That was pretty much the only good move there. He's just trying to defend. And now white just simply castles. Very nice move. Again, that's the best move according to Fritz. And I've also checked my analysis with Houdini and Ribka, and Houdini 2.0, Ribka 4.0, I believe it is, and also Deep Shredder, which I think is Deep Shredder 12, whatever the latest version is of Deep Shredder. But anyway, I have all those engines, and I've checked all this analysis with those engines to make sure that it is accurate. So because I've used so many different engines and I've spent quite a bit of time doing it, you can almost guarantee that there are no mistakes in my analysis. Again, not because I'm so wonderful, but simply because the engines today are so strong and so reliable that if you take your time and make sure you check every single move with an engine, and maybe if you have a very complex position, do an overnight analysis with a little bit of sliding thrown in, you're going to find it gets very hard to make a serious error. I mean, you'd have to be moving very quickly and just disregarding what the engine is telling you to do, or what the engine is indicating that the best move would be. So anyway, here black plays this very move that was forced, queen e8, and now white just castles, and he's offering a pawn here. And now we're going to explore a little bit, the pawn sack line, because that is interesting. What happens if black didn't take the pawn in the actual game? But here, now, the best move here would be knight d4, but going over an old grandmaster line was bishop b3, b6, re1, queen g4, h3, queen h5, knight e5, exclam, knight takes e5, rook takes e5, h6, bishop e7, and here white has an overwhelming attack. This is not my line. This is a line that was given many years ago, and it is winning, very clearly winning for white. And there's a lot of places there where black doesn't have a better move. But we can see here after queen e4 that the indicated move, well, actually bishop to b3 is now being indicated by Fritz, but also knight d4 is also a very good move. So anyway, that's just, taking that pawn was a very, very bad idea. And if you don't believe me, you can always fire up your own engine and check it out for yourself. So anyway, here, let's just backtrack a little bit here. White played bishop to g5. Black played queen e8, threatening queen takes pawn check. You would normally expect someone to stop and protect the pawn, but here Morphy doesn't even do that. He sees that he wants open lines, and because of the queen on d6, look at the position very carefully. The queen on d6 is actually like a plug. It's actually plugging that d pawn, and because of that queen on d6, Black is going to play practically the rest of this game, at least for the significant future, without all three of these pieces. These pieces cannot get out, especially this bishop and this rook. So because of that queen there, basically Black's playing the game 3 pieces down, and that's because of the powerful position of the white queen on the d6 square. Black continues to develop. He goes king h8. The idea of that move is by getting out of this pin, that maybe he can play f6, kick this bishop back, and then once he does that, maybe he can begin to untangle a little bit. So that's the idea of that move. In other words, f6, and then maybe the bishop moves back, and then queen e7. And if the queen moves back, then Black can play d5 or d6 or whatever, but at least he can try to untangle here. So anyway, Black plays king h8. White plays rae1. Please note this position. Note that White's only played 11 moves, and he's managed to develop every single one of his pieces. He has mobilized, Morphe has mobilized his entire army, and every unit is actively engaged. I mean, every single piece is doing a great job and is looking at some great squares. So that's, even this rook hiding behind this knight is about to get unleashed. So I mean, it's just a almost perfect development, and very rarely do you have a perfect development out of the opening, but here Morphe has managed to do exactly that. And Black plays f6. He continues with his idea. Again, I've already explained that, to kick back the bishop, and now White doesn't even bother to retreat here. The normal move you would expect here, if I were White, I would be very tempted just to play bishop to d2, and I'm sure I could probably win with that move, because it should win. It gets the pieces out of the way, and you can just simply launch a full-scale attack. And again, Black's not going to be able to play with these pieces, but Morphe doesn't even do that. He goes ahead and plays e5, and he's insisting on opening lines. In fact, I call it the Morphe Principle. I have about 5 Morphe principles that I've developed over the years from the study of Paul Morphy's games. And one of the very first Morphe principles that I've noticed is that, well, actually it's the second one, always develop very rapidly. That's probably the first Morphe principle. But the second Morphe principle that I have noticed from Morphy's games is that once he's completed his development, usually because he was such a great player, his opponents were almost always lagging behind him in development, then he immediately would begin to open up lines, just systematically open up lines. And that was one of the things I noticed from my study of many of dozens of Paul Morphy's games. But anyway, e5 here. Now here, in the actual game, Black played f5. He's trying to keep the lines closed. But let's just go ahead and take a minute here, just very quickly, explore what would happen if Black played f takes g5, taking the bishop. Is he able to get away with that? In other words, is that the question? And the answer is no, because after knight g5, knight a6, Black may as well try to develop his army. Rook takes f8, queen takes f8, rook e4, knight c5. Now it looks like Black's actually done a good thing. He's got all of his army developed, and this is a line I believe that was given by Mednes or some other author. I didn't make this line up. This came out of one of my books. I believe it was the book by Mednes, but Mednes may have got it from somewhere else. But anyway, knight c5. Now White has a very crushing move. He plays queen takes g6. Black can't ignore this move because the threat is simply queen takes h7. So, and when he takes there, then rook h4 is mate. So that's a very pretty little line, and maybe if you can improve on a few of those moves, but you're not going to save Black's game, and I think any engine will show you that very quickly. So just backing up there, we can see that after e5 that Black cannot take the bishop. In fact, the correct move according to the engine is f5. Well, actually, now it's switching again. It's saying f takes g5, but a minute ago it was showing that f5 was Black's best defense. And since we know that humans cannot ever calculate like an engine, probably here the general idea is, since Black is lagging so badly in his development, I think the wisest thing that he can do is simply, try to keep lines closed. But anyway, f5. White plays knight d4. Notice again, now what that does is unleashes all the pieces. This rook's behind this pawn, running up here. This rook's hitting this pawn twice. The queen's actively engaged. The bishops are crisscrossing to the bishop. The bishops are crisscrossing or lasering all over black's position, you know, right through the heart of black's position. So it's really bad. Now black, he's got a pawn hanging, so basically he does the only thing he can. He's not going to give away a pawn and allow white to open up the f file, so he plays f4 here. And now white, again, you know, Morphe, I remember a few years ago, it's been a number of years ago, it was like 60 or 70 years ago, I believe it was in Chess Review or some other national chess magazine, one author challenged Morphe's e6. He said that e6 wasn't the best move, and he had put a line in there where he thought there was a better move. I don't even remember what it was, but he felt like e6 wasn't the best move there, and he had come up with a different move. But I think it might even been g3. But anyway, e6 is by far the best move here. It's just crushing, and again, it's very logical. Morphe is pursuing, you know, very single-mindedly pursuing his relentless drive to simply open more lines. And again, this is one of the Morphe principles in action. e6, again, the very best move. D takes e6, knight takes e6. Now black, the only bad part about e6 is that, you know, this queen side gets unplugged a little bit. But, you know, Morphe's already. Bishop takes e6, rook takes e6, queen c8. And it looks, let's see, the engine gives queen d7 there, but that move loses pretty badly. You can just, if you're interested, I'll leave that as like a homework assignment for my interested fans and students. You can just work out you can see that Fritz still says white is winning, and it's over 7 points. It's like 7.87 or 7.79. So there's no doubt that queen d7 is not going to save black's game. Here black played queen c8, and the move looks forced. Okay. A lot of other things he could have done there. In fact, after queen d7, white can play rook takes g6 as just one winning idea. But anyway, yeah, queen d7, rook takes g6 would be the move. But here black played queen c8. And again, I have a web page for this game, and if you want to, you can always fire up your own engine and explore some of the lines. And if your analysis is really good enough, I'll check it. But if it's really good enough, I might post it on one of my web pages. If you come up with a fairly witty little line, maybe ending in checkmate or something, I might even post it on my web page. But anyway, in the actual game, black played queen c8 there. And now white's next move is just smashing, just rook takes g6. And again, if you check out the engine move there, the engine move also says, hey, rook takes g6 is correct. It's smashing and it's ripping open lines. And now black probably should not take back. He does capture here. He takes back. Now here's where things get interesting. All right, here after h takes g6, Morphe played queen takes g6. And I don't remember ever seeing anyone bring up the fact that maybe there was an alternative here to queen takes g6. And the first person that I remember doing that was years ago. I used to give these weekly lectures at my chess club. It was for the lower rated players who were interested, and I would always pick out a game and briefly lecture either on a position or a problem. And I did that for several years ago. This was some 20 years ago when the Pensacola Chess Club met at the Baptist Hospital. Well, during one of my lectures, there was a player there, a very strong player. He was once very close to the master level. His name is Rick Fry, and he's been a member of our chess club for a number of years. But anyway, Rick Fry pointed out that white has the alternative there of Rook F3. And I just want to show you this because this is a very brilliant move. Now, Rook F3 may have been suggested. I don't know who suggested it first. I really don't know that. But I do know that, remember that according to my notes, that it's been some 20 years ago during one of my chess club lectures that Rick Fry from our chess club suggested the idea of Rook F3 with the very simple idea of Rook H3. You know, like if Knight D7, then Rook H3 is just checkmate. So here we can just follow the computer analysis. We can go Rook E8. That, you know, that's one move. You can see here that Fritz is saying it's mate and 8 no matter what white does. But anyway, Rook E8, Rook takes F4, Rook E1 check, King F2, Rook E4, Rook F8 check, King H7, Bishop to G8 check, King H8, Bishop F7 check, Queen takes F8 check, Queen takes F8, King H7, Queen G8 mate. And all those moves are forced. And I just want to let you know that I did not, when I first did my analysis, I totally forgot about that move. I didn't even do too much investigation of that move. It wasn't until after I posted my web page that several people wrote me, emailed me. But the first person to email me that, as I remember, and his analysis, I believe, contained all of these moves. I'm sure he might have had an engine to help him, but nonetheless, he had all those moves, and it was done by a fellow by the name of Bjorn Snagsrud. I don't know if I'm saying his name correctly. He's apparently Swedish or Norwegian or something like that. But anyway, he sent me an email, and that was like in 2004, I believe it was. But anyway, he said that Rook F3 won for white, and it's quite clear that that would have won even better than the game. But in the actual game, Morphe played queen takes g6. So it is actually comforting, for at least to me, to know that Morphe wasn't perfect, and that, you know, not all of his moves are picture perfect or, you know, machine perfect. So once in a while, even Morphe didn't find the absolutely best move. But anyway, queen takes g6, I give that an exclam on my webpage. It's a very good move because it contains a very powerful threat. The threat is simply queen h5 and mate. But the move Rook f3 was even better, and Fritz backs that up. So anyway, that's just a somewhat newer discovery. If you're very familiar with this game and you have some of the older books, again, some of the books that I mentioned in my bibliography, and we'll go over my bibliography briefly at the end of this game. A lot of those books don't even mention the possibility of Rook f3 there. So that's something that's relatively new. So queen takes g6 is what Morphe played, and black plays queen f5. The idea is that if white plays queen h5 check, black can play queen h7. Now here, I'm going to pause the video, and I'm going to just stop talking for a minute. And you go ahead and pause the video as soon as I stop talking. But I want you to take an opportunity and pause the video and see if you can't figure out what the best move would be for white in this position. All right, go ahead and pause the video. Okay, if you paused the video and did like I asked, you took as much time as you wanted to, and you tried to figure out what the winning move is here for white. It's not at all easy because it involves a queen sacrifice, and that's another thing that's very pleasing about this game, is this white's next move is far from being obvious. White plays rook takes f4. Very nice move there, and I do believe that, yep, again, that's the engine move, rook takes f4. Other than the queen takes g6, I believe all of Morphe's moves here, after the opening's over anyway, match up with the engine. So rook takes f4, and very beautiful, exclaims GM Edmar Mednes. By the way, Mednes is no longer alive. He passed away a few years back. But I have his autograph in several of my chess books, and I knew him personally. He was a very decent sort of chap, and of course he was a wonderful, very strong chess player. Played in a number of U.S. championships with Bobby Fischer. So anyway, rook takes f4, and again, you know, it looks like a shocking move because it looks like it just drops the queen. Now all the rest of the moves are pretty much forced. Rook takes f8 check. Again, black only has one move. King h7. Bishop g8 check. Again, black only has one move. Notice that the black king can't go to h6. That square is covered by the white bishop on g5, so he has to go back. Bishop f7 check. Again, black only has, again, one move. He's got to go back to h7. Bishop takes g6. King takes g6, and now just simply bishop to f4, and this is the final position here. And in this position, black resigns simply because the threat is rook takes knight, you know, winning a piece, and if this knight moves out of the way, then black simply drops an entire rook. And at this point, you know, it's a very easy hands down win. Fritz is showing an 8-point advantage for white. I mean, and at this point, whoever was playing the black pieces here decided that this was the correct time to call it a day. And anyway, that's pretty much does it for my video. Let's just quickly run through I won't run through the bibliography, because if you want to see that, you can simply go to the web page. But there's a number of books there. David Lawson's book, Mednes's book, I quoted that already. The Evolution of Chess Theory by Macon Shabut, or Shibut, S-H-I-B-U-T. His book is quoted there, and there are several other books that I've seen this game in several chess magazines over the years, seen it in many books, more books than I can really tell you about. And I have just about all the books ever printed, at least in English, that have been done on Paul Morphy. So that pretty much concludes my video. Thank you for watching my video. Hope you have a great day. Be sure to check out the webpage. Again, the webpage will have a very thorough analysis of, you know, all the different moves and whatnot. And also too, if you like my videos and you like my webpage and you would like to support my efforts in building great web pages and building, making what I believe to be some of the better videos on the internet, then I hope you would go to PayPal. Go to the PayPal website. It's www.paypal.com, and make a contribution if you wish to do so. And at my account, the way you access or make a donation to me is my email address that you can make a donation under is lifemasteraj@yahoo.com, and that my email is all over my website. So all you have to do is Google me or go to my main webpage, and you'll see my email there. Thank you for watching my video, and I hope you have a great day.